lines. Yeah. Okay, so the shoulder-to-shoulder reading actually covers a couple of different areas. It tends to have the kids speak quieter as they're reading. It also forces them to read their own material and not their partner's material while their partner is reading. And it also encourages the partner to be able to hear because they each have their own text. Their partner is tracking along as their partner reads. One child is tracking while the other one's reading, and when they come to a mistake, they can then stop them and ask them to go back to the beginning of the sentence and read. So it's the close proximity has mainly volume control and self-reading of self-text control. Whereas if they're knee to knee, which is not wrong, but you tend to have one student trying to read the other student's text even though they have their own text in front of them. So let's talk about small group instruction. This may also be the first time that you begin small group instruction in CKLA. It may not be the first time, but it might be the first time. Just saying that some people have waited to do it till this point. In CKLA materials, Group 1 will always refer to the group that includes students who may need remediation. Your kids that need a high level of support is always referred in your materials as Group 1. And Group 2 will always refer to your students who are better able to work independently. That does not mean that you only have 2 groups. You may have Group 1 divided into 2 more groups, but just know that in the materials when they're talking about it, these are the group types of level that these kids are. On page 5 in your teacher edition, the program discusses alternatives to the traditional ability level grouping. Matching stronger and weaker students can also be an option, and to create more heterogeneous groups, especially during workstation time. So you have multiple options for the different ways that you would like to group your students. So let's talk about the wiggle cards.
We have a question about the groups.
Okay, I'm sorry.
How can it be set up if we need more than 2 groups? Is this number of groups important?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is it like do you mean like what are they doing while I'm working with one of the groups? Kind of like our literacy stations?
Okay, we can go on, and if that question comes back up, I'll let you know.
Okay. Okay, so in Unit 5, we are continuing with the wiggle cards, wiggle cards introduced in Unit 5, and in Unit 6 we're continuing that. There will be more wiggle phrases and more wiggle cards available, phrases, words. You know, we start out with the words and then we move to the phrases. Those more will become available on the TLC as we develop those. Remember that the students read these and then act them out. They're fun, decodable phrases for the purpose of fluency for the kids. Placing a variety of the cards on a ring for quick access can lend itself to frequent reviews and practicing, like maybe in line at the bathrooms or getting in line for lunch or recess. They could also be used to switch over transitioning from one content to another area. Did you have something, Sherry?
Yeah. So it was, if we have a low group and a high group and then a super low group, is there a better way to set up the CKLA block for that?
We want to make sure that students are really firm at where they're at. So taking that low group and continuing to work with them as frequently as possible putting in the pausing points and helping them, even if it's taking those baby steps together, keeping them in that group is probably a really nice idea. It'll help focus on the skills that they need and move them forward. And then you'll probably have those 2 lower groups, so you may end up with a higher group and then 2, as Rita said, group 1s in there. And yeah, it would just mean dividing your efforts among each of those 3 groups and then relying on the program and the pausing points that are in there to help remediate and hopefully accelerate the students who need it the most.
So another option might be if you have other teachers at your same grade level, this may be a good opportunity to talk as a grade level team about how one teacher might take the low, another teacher a medium, and another teacher the high group, and the kids walk from teacher to teacher. If that's not an option, I would continue to have whole group CKLA, and then the following half hour, after you do CKLA and you break into groups, you take the group that needs the most support first and continue to work pausing points and other parts of earlier or previous units taught with those low kids.
Yep. And pages 5 and 6 in Unit 6 kind of reinforce what Rita said about flexible grouping. So maybe just kind of getting a minute to read a little bit more about that will help with those students.
So a little bit more about the wiggle cards. When you look on page 16 in Unit 6, you'll know that there's a section called Supplemental Resources. They come right after the take-home sheets. Please take some extra time to read that section. And due to the large number of phrases the program generates, not all cards for all units have been created. We are still working on those, so keep your eye on the TLC. Okay, so in Unit 6, Lesson 9, students will learn how to write the words as you dictate them. That's where the letter naming comes in. This will scaffold until students are writing phrases. Phrases like red stamp, slid on sled, drops and drips. In addition to your daily observations and progress monitoring, this assessment in particular is very informative. So you need to make sure you pay particular attention to your assessments in Unit 6. And it really focuses on who needs what to move to mastery. So it's very prescriptive. It'll take a little longer, but the data will help to identify the students that really need the extra support. Remember the remediation guide, the assessment and remediation guide. Make sure you go back to that to really hone in on those students and what they need for extra support. These extra supports can also help to accelerate the children. You'll need to strategically plan to meet with your students and support their needs in this unit. Do you have anything else you want to add? All right, record keeping. This is becoming important for the GE Foundation schools. I'm going to give you a minute to read the slide. The record keeping sheets are located near the assessment. Use them to progress monitor. It will give you evidence for your Danielson portfolio, for Danielson's third quadrant, using assessment in instruction. And perhaps if you are focusing your SLO on foundational skills, this will be pivotal for that as well. Begin bringing a copy of the data sheet to your grade level meetings, where each grade level group of teachers can look at their students collectively and their progress, and have dialogue around how your students are progressing through their skills.
All right, and that brings us up to Unit 7 then. Okay. After a lot of good work in Unit 7, students are going to be working on digraphs. It includes not only the CH and the SH sounds, but also both forms of the TH, that voiceless sound, and the voice sound that we hear in those thick and thin, where the tongue is through the teeth, and also the that and those, where the tongue does that vibration for us. They're also going to be introduced to the QU or Q sound that we hear in quick, queen, and quarter, and then the NG, that's at the end of many words like sung, rang, and thing. And that's a little harder sound to pronounce for the students, but just know it's not a real strong sound. The ng at the end of the word is something that we'll work on. We'll all get it. The digraphs are defined by CKLA as letter teams in which two letters work together to make one new sound. And to help students be really conscious of this new sound, they've put the print in bold on each of the pages. So the example that we have here is for Seth, and the students will see that TH in bold in their readers.
We have a question. Are the vocabulary cards on the TLC?
Yes, a nice question about the vocabulary cards. We want to thank the coaches who last spring and summer worked on creating those for us. So in each of the unit folders, 6 through 10, the vocabulary cards appear. They can be printed in color, and they'll look great on your word walls. So thanks for asking. Yes, they're there. All right. In Unit 7, the oral blending is going to continue, and you'll use hand signals to help students with this because the words are going to get a little bit longer. So continue to go with left to right, and then you'll tap your finger to your thumb to start. Continue to work across the word, so you'll have words like d, I, p, s, drips, as you segment and blend these words. Okay. All right. In Unit 7, thank you, Maggie, here it comes, those inferential questions. They're going to be questions like, why do you think Ted is chopping logs? And do you think that Seth, Ted, and Pat enjoyed their lunch? Why? Use evidence to support your answers. So these kind of questions are going to require students to understand and interpret not only the text, but the illustrations that are in the book as well. So as a best practice, continue to have your students answer these questions in complete sentences using the sentence stem as the initial part of the answer. Okay? One more little piece that will be new for the students here, now that they're mastering that partner reading routine, is that they're going to ask students to begin to generate a question for one another to ask their partner about the stories. So this at practice, just like Rita explained that they would need to practice learning how to do the ear-to-ear, knee-to-knee kind of reading for partner reading and establish that routine and give students feedback for the way that you'd like to see it done, the same thing's going to occur for these asking each other stories too. Want to do a lot of nice modeling around that, and then some having the kids model it, the I do, we do, you do, and then nice feedback to keep that going. It could even be your way of wrapping up the lesson. What question did you ask your partner?
We have a question about the assessment and remediation guide. Is that a separate book or is it in the binder?
It's a separate book. It's I'm trying. Do we put it on the TLC?
Parts. No, it's not. Well, ask the coaches.
Okay, it's not on the TLC right now, but when you go to the website, the CKLA website, you will find it there under your grade level.
All right. And then in Unit 7, the pausing points continue to give teachers additional dictation and phrases that can be used for writing, spelling, and reading. So that's a nice place to go for resources on these. The phrases and words are there. And then remember, students can illustrate the phrases for additional practice and repetition in the writing workstation.